Hey guys, what's going on? You are watching Just Enjoy YouTube channel. And my new video is for 30 best games of this decade. This is not based on any poll. So don't feel bad if your favorite game doesn't appears. Just comment your favorite game. Enjoy the video. #30 Hitman 2 is a stealth video game developed by IO Interactive and published by Warner Bros. Interactive Entertainment for Microsoft Windows, PlayStation 4, and Xbox One. It is the 7th major installment in the Hitman video game series and is the sequel to the 2016 game Hitman as the second installment of the World of Assassination trilogy. The game was released on November 13, 2018, and was met with generally positive reviews, with critics considering it to be an improvement over its predecessor. Number 29 Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six Siege is an online tactical shooter video game developed by Ubisoft Montreal and published by Ubisoft. It was released worldwide for Microsoft Windows, PlayStation 4, and Xbox One on December 1, 2015. The game is also set to be released for PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X/S in 2020. The game puts heavy emphasis on environmental destruction and cooperation between players. Each player assumes control of an attacker. Number 28 Arma 3 is an open-world, realism-based, military tactical shooter video game. Arma 3 takes place in the mid-2030s, on the islands of Eltis and Stretas in the Aegean Sea, and the South Pacific island of Tenerife. The islands feature photorealistic terrain water environments. Eltis is the largest official terrain in the Arma series with ground area covering approximately 270 square kilometers, 100 sq.mi. The smaller island, Stretas, expands over an area of 20 square kilometers, 7.7 sq.mi. Number 27 God of War. It is the 8th installment in the God of War series, the 8th chronologically, and a sequel to 2010's God of War III. Unlike previous games, which were loosely based on Greek mythology, this installment is rooted in Norse mythology, with the majority of it set in ancient Norway in the realm of Midgard. For the first time in the series, there are two protagonists: Kratos, the former Greek god of war who remains the only playable character, and his young son Atreus. Following the death of Kratos' wife and Atreus' mother, they journey. Number 26 Mafia 2 Definitive Edition. War hero Vito Scaletta becomes entangled with the mob in hopes of paying his father's debts. Vito works to prove himself, climbing the family ladder with crimes of larger reward and consequence. The game is set in the 1940s early 1950s era of Empire Bay, a fictional city based on New York City, Chicago, San Francisco, Los Angeles, Boston and Detroit. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There are 50 vehicles in the game as well as licensed music from the era. 10 depending on the weather. Valorant is a free-to-play multiplayer tactical first-person shooter developed and published by Riot Games. Valorant is a team-based tactical shooter and first-person shooter set in the near future. Players play as one of a set of agents, characters designed based on several countries and cultures around the world. In the main game mode, players are assigned to either the attacking or defending team, with each team having 5 players on it. Agents have unique abilities, each requiring charges, as well as a unique ultimate ability which requires charging through kills, deaths, or spike actions. Every player starts each round with a classic pistol. PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds aka PUBG is an online multiplayer battle royale game developed and published by PUBG Corporation. The game is based on previous maps that were created by Brendan PlayerUnknown Green for other games, inspired by the 2000 Japanese film Battle Royale, and expanded into a standalone game under Green's creative direction. In the game, up to 100 players parachute onto an island and scavenge for weapons and equipment to kill others while avoiding getting killed themselves. The available safe area of the game's map decreases in size over time, directing survival. Resident Evil 2 is a remake of the 1998 game of the same name. Unlike the original, which uses tank controls and fixed camera angles, the remake features over-the-shoulder third-person shooter gameplay similar to Resident Evil 4, and allows players the option to move while using their weapons. The standard difficulty mode deviates from the original by featuring autosaves and allowing players to save as often as they would like inside safe rooms. If the player chooses to play on hardcore difficulty, players will be required to collect and use a finite. Number 22. Life is Strange is a graphic adventure played from a third-person view. The mechanic of rewinding time allows the player to redo almost any action that has been taken. The player can examine and interact with objects, which enables puzzle solving in the form of fetch quests and making changes to the environment. Items that are collected before time traveling will be kept in the inventory after the fact. The plot focuses on Max Caulfield, an 18-year-old photography student who discovers that she has the ability to rewind time at any moment, leading. Number 21. Shadow of the Tomb Raider. Set shortly after the events of Rise of the Tomb Raider, its story follows Lara Croft as she ventures through the tropical regions of the Americas to the legendary city Paititi, battling the paramilitary organization Trinity and racing to stop an Mayan apocalypse she has unleashed. Lara must traverse the environment and combat enemies with firearms and stealth as she explores semi-open hubs. In these HUDs she can raid challenge tombs to unlock new rewards, complete side missions, and scavenge for resources which can be used to craft useful materials. Played from a third-person perspective, players take on the role of Lara. Number 20. Counter-Strike Global Offensive, CS::GO, is a multiplayer first-person shooter video game developed by Valve. The game pits two teams against each other, the terrorists and the counter-terrorists. Both sides are tasked with eliminating the other while also completing separate objectives. The terrorists, depending on the game mode, must neither plant the bomb or defend the hostages, while the counter-terrorists must neither prevent the bomb from being planted, defuse the bomb, or rescue the hostages. There are 9 game modes, all of which have distinct characteristics specific to that. Number 19. Uncharted The Lost Legacy is an action-adventure game played from a third-person perspective, with platform game elements. Players use firearms, melee combat, and stealth to defend against the hostile enemies. Players control Chloe Fraser, a treasure hunter who is physically adept and is able to jump, sprint, climb, swim, and perform other acrobatic actions. Players traverse several environments, moving through locations including towns, buildings, and temples to advance through the game's story. Players use firearms, melee combat, and stealth to defend. Number 18. Batman Arkham Knight. The game is presented from a third-person perspective, with a primary focus on Batman's melee combat, stealth abilities, detective skills, and gadgets. Batman can freely move around the open world of Gotham City, interacting with characters and undertaking missions, and unlocking new areas by progressing through the main story or obtaining new equipment. The player is able to complete side missions away from the main story to unlock additional content and collectible items. Combat focuses on chaining attacks together against. Number 17. Fortnite is a battle royale, sandbox and cooperative game. Players can use their pickaxe to knock down existing structures on the map to collect basic resources that are wood, brick, and metal. Subsequently, in all modes, the player can use these materials to build fortifications, such as walls, floors, and stairs. Such fortification pieces can be added to add things like windows or doors. The materials used have different durability properties and can be updated to stronger variants using more materials of the same type. Within Save the World. Number 16. Call of Duty Modern Warfare is a 2019 first-person shooter video game developed by Infinity Ward and published by Activision. The game takes place in a realistic and modern setting. The campaign follows a CIA officer and British SAS forces as they team up with rebels from the fictional country of Kazakhstan, combating together against Russian forces who have invaded the country. The game's Special Ops mode features cooperative playing missions that follow up the campaign's story. The multiplayer mode supports cross-platform multiplayer and cross-platform progression for the first. Number 15. Microsoft Flight Simulator, which simulates the entire Earth using textures and data from Bing maps, whilst three-dimensional representations of the world's features are generated by Microsoft Azure technology. Through the use of the Azure Cloud to render visuals, enhance visual fidelity, and simulate real-world data and effects, as well as calculate physics, most of the aircraft are of US, French, or German origin, with a few coming from Austrian, Czech and Slovenian companies. Flight Simulator includes around 37,000 manually edited airports from around the world, based on real-world satellite images. Number 14. Forza Horizon 4 is a racing video game set in an open-world environment based in a fictionalized Great Britain, with regions that include condensed representations of Edinburgh, the Lake District, including Drangedwiller, Ambleside and the Cotswolds, including Broadway, among others, and features currently over 700 licensed cars. The game features a route creator which enables players to create their own races. The game takes place in a synchronized shared world, compared to the AI-driven drivers from its predecessors, with each server supporting up to 72 players. The game is also number 13. Fall Guys Ultimate Knockout, where up to 60 players compete in matches with Battle Royale-style gameplay. Players, represented as jelly bean-like figures, move around a three-dimensional playing field, with additional moves such as jumping, grabbing/climbing, or diving to assist gameplay. The aim is to qualify for subsequent rounds by successfully completing each of the randomly selected minigames. Certain minigames involve running towards a finish line at the end of the map, while others add elements of teamwork on every minigame. Obstacles appear around the map for added complexity. Number 12. The Elder Scrolls V. Skyrim is an action role-playing video game. The game's main story revolves around the player's character, the Dragonborn, on their quest to defeat Eldin the World Eater, a dragon who is prophesied to destroy the world. The game is set 200 years after the events of Oblivion and takes place in Skyrim, the northernmost province of Tamriel. Over the course of the game, the player completes quests and develops the character by improving skills. The game continues the open-world tradition of its predecessors by allowing the player to travel anywhere in the game world at any time. Number 11. The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild is a 2017 action-adventure game developed and published by Nintendo. Players are tasked with exploring the Kingdom of Hyrule while controlling Link. In terms of structure, Breath of the Wild encourages non-linear gameplay, which is illustrated by the game's lack of defined entrances or exits to areas, scant instruction given to the player, and encouragement to explore freely. Breath of the Wild introduces a consistent physics engine of the Zelda series, letting players approach problems in different ways rather than trying to find it. Number 10. Overwatch, which is a team-based multiplayer first-person shooter developed and published by Blizzard Entertainment. Described as a hero shooter, Overwatch assigns players into 2 teams of 6, with each player selecting from a roster of over 30 characters, known as heroes, each with a unique style of play that is divided into 3 general roles that fit their purpose. Players on a team work together to secure and defend control points on a map or escort a payload across the map in a limited amount of time. Players gain cosmetic rewards that do not affect gameplay, such as character skins and victory poses, as they play the game. Number 9. Watch Dogs 2, developed by Ubisoft, set within a fictionalized version of the San Francisco Bay Area. The game is played from a third-person perspective and its open world is navigated on foot or by vehicle. Players control Marcus Holloway, a hacker who works with the hacking group DevSec to take down the city's advanced surveillance system known as CTOS. There are multiple ways to complete missions, and each successful assignment increases the follower count of DevSec. Cooperative multiplayer allows for competitive one-on-one combat and connecting with other players to neutralize a player who is causing havoc. Number 8. Assassin's Creed IV. Black Flag is an action-adventure video game developed by Ubisoft. The plot is set in a fictional history of real-world events and follows the centuries-old struggle between the assassins, who fight for peace with free will, and the Templars, who desired peace through control. The framing story is set in the 21st century and describes the player as an Abstergo agent. The main story is set in the 18th century Caribbean during the golden age of piracy, and follows notorious Welsh pirate Edward Cambay, grandfather and father of Assassin's Creed. The third protagonist Retonic. Number 7. Marvel's Avengers, which is a 2020 action role-playing brawler video game co-developed by Crystal Dynamics and published by Square Enix. Based on the Marvel Comics superhero team The Avengers, the game is mainly inspired by the Marvel Cinematic Universe's iteration of the group, but also incorporates elements from the team's long-running comic book mythology. The plot follows Inhuman teenager Kamala Khan, who gains superpowers after exposure to Trigon mist during a day, a celebratory day for the Avengers, until a tragedy resulted in death and destruction. Blamed for the tragedy, the Avengers disbanded, allowing the Science Corporation (AIM). Number 6. Horizon Zero Dawn is an action role-playing game. Players take control of Ella, a hunter who ventures through a post-apocalyptic land ruled by robotic creatures. Ella can kill enemies in a variety of ways, setting traps such as tripwires using the tripcaster, shooting them with arrows, using explosives, and spear machine components, including electricity and the metal they're composed of, are vital to Ella's survival. She can loot their remains for crafting resources. Ammo, resource satchels, pouches, quivers, resistance, antidotes, health potions, and traps can all be crafted. 11 weapons have modification slots for dealing more damage. Ella wears a focus, a small. Number 5. Red Dead Redemption 2, which is a 2018 action-adventure game developed and published by Rockstar Games. Gameplay elements include shootouts, heists, hunting, horseback riding, interacting with non-player characters, and maintaining a character's honor rating through moral choices and deeds. A Western-themed action-adventure game. Played from a first or third-person perspective, the game is set in an open-world environment featuring a fictionalized version of the Western, Midwestern, and Southern United States in 1899. Number 4. The Last of Us Part 2 is a 2020 action-adventure game developed by Naughty Dog. Played from a third-person perspective, featuring elements of the survival horror genre. Control intermittently switches between Ellie and Abby. The nimble nature of the player character introduces platforming elements to the game, allowing the player to jump and climb the traverse environments and gain advantages during combat. The player can use long-range weapons such as rifles and bows, and short-range weapons such as pistols and revolvers. Though the player can attack enemies directly, they can also use stealth to attack undetected or sneak past them. Number 3. The Witcher 3. Wild Hunt is a 2015 action role-playing game developed and published by CD Projekt Red. Players control Geralt of Rivia, a monster slayer known as a Witcher. Players can draw out, switch and sheath their swords at will. There are 2 modes of melee attack. Light attacks are fast but weak, and heavy attacks are slow but strong. The game focuses on narrative, and has a dialogue wheel which allows players to choose how to respond to non-player characters. Geralt must make decisions which change the state of the world and led to 36 possible endings. Number 2. Cyberpunk 2077 is an upcoming action role-playing video game developed and published by CD Projekt. The 48 minutes demo gameplay proof that it is really an awesome game. Cyberpunk 2077 is played in a first-person perspective as V, a mercenary whose voice, face, hairstyles, body type and modifications, background, and clothing are customizable. Stat categories: body, intelligence, reflexes, technical, and cooler influenced by the character classes that players assume, which are entraîneur, hacking, techie, machinery, and solo combat. The perk tree branches into melee, blades, handguns, shotguns, rifles. Number 1 Grand Theft Auto 5 is a 2013 action-adventure game developed by Rockstar Games. It banged the whole entertainment industry as it became the most profitable entertainment product of all time. Players complete missions linear scenarios with set objectives to progress through the story. Outside of the missions, players may freely roam the open world. Composed of the San Andreas open countryside area, including the fictional Blaine County, and the fictional city of Los Santos, the world is much larger in area than earlier entries in the series. Players use melee attacks, firearms and explosives to fight enemies, and may run, jump, swim or use vehicles to navigate the world. The single-player mode lets players control 3 characters: Michael D. Santa, Trevor Phillips and Franklin Clinton, criminals whose stories interconnect as they complete missions. Some missions are completed with only 1 character and others feature 2 or 3 outside the missions. Players may switch between characters at will by a directional compass on the HUD.